And we're back once again, only on it's Last Call. Last Call the alcohol, only on the Last Call podcast.com. And joining me here, this man, well, if you are a diehard Jets fan, you know him because he is I'm going to say this here, don't get offended. He is a intellectual Jets fan. He is from the Scout Academy, the content contributor for Jets X Factory, talking Jet Show draft analyst, and the man who he has faith in the team. It's going to take some time, but he has faith that there is a plan. I give you the hardcore Jets aficionado himself. I give you it's Dom C. So, Dom, let's start off here with the trade that still is, I guess, getting a lot of plug here. That is the Sauce Gardner trade. In your opinion, how did it come to this? Why was it that the Jets decided to move on from their All-Pro corner? What was it about this time that the new regime said, okay, we're trading him, we're going to get all the picks we can, and we're going to make this happen?
Yeah, Chris. So this one was a little bit peculiar. Definitely out of left field. I think the easiest answer that I can give, the surface level answer, is they this regime, Darren Muji, GM Darren Muji, and head coach Aaron Glenn said that no, yeah, I remember their introductory press conference, and they said no stone will remain unturned if it means we can't help the team. I don't think, and I know this. I don't know for a fact because I wasn't in the room with Muji and Aaron Glenn, but suffice to say that they weren't shopping Sauce Gardner, but I guess Indianapolis had poked and prodded for a couple weeks now, and they just picked up the phone and listened, but it really got no steam. And this comes to me directly from somebody in the know with the on the Indianapolis Colts beat, and somebody who has much um better intel to the front office over there. And so this had been going on for a few weeks, but then it just kind of fizzled out and it was nothing. It just was kind of like introductory conversations, nothing came about it. And I guess they decided to really put all the chips in the middle. And they came back with Muji on an offer that you can't, I guess, that he couldn't refuse. Now, was there sour milk with Sauce in New York? I don't know. Some people started to question when he wasn't named a captain, and some of the other guys in his class were named captain. I don't think his work ethic was ever questioned. I just think it was one of these things where they realized that paying a cornerback, at the top of the market when you had a team that was probably a couple years away from being relevant wasn't the best allocation of resources. So they got something that they just realized that they couldn't do. I mean, Micah Parsons, who's arguably the best player in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball, went for a package that was ultimately less than the package that the Jets got for Sauce Gardner, who's 25. Yes, he's has 3 years or 4 years committed to that contract. The Jets already paid out a lot of the bonus money up front, so they're the Colts are in the clear of that. So I guess the Jets just decided that they know that they're cooked without all the proper allocation of resources, so they can go get their quarterback. Without a quarterback, you can't win in this league. This gives them an option to replenish, which they already had, in a third-round draft pick in Azariah Thomas from Florida State on the roster. They can replenish much cheaper at the position. Still probably lose a lot of games, which they've been losing with the $25 million man, Sauce Gardner, and gives them 2 more first-round picks or shots or bites at the apple, if you will, to go get their quarterback.
So you've heard the rumors and the whispers, and you know how it is. For every truth, there's like 8 or 9 like half truths, lies. So were they upset? I mean, was ownership upset that last year he was not tackling a lot, but he was looking out for himself, which you have to be in the NFL. Like, this is, as much as everybody says it's a team business, you are basically a small business owner. If you get hurt, owners will be happy to just cut you. So
Yeah.
was that a problem that he wasn't tackling, that he was not what, say, a Trent McDuffie is, who is a physical, hard nosed cornerback, and he's more of a just cover cornerback?
Yeah, no, I don't think the front office was upset with him at all. I think that they just realized who he is. I don't think they paid him, like I said, $25-30 million, for his tackling prowess. They paid him to shut down the wide receiver one on the opposite team or the half of the field, and like other than both of them playing cornerbacks, I think you kind of hit it on the head. Trent McDuffie, and Sauce Gardner are apples and oranges in terms of their play style, their skill sets, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I don't think that they were upset that he wasn't tackling. And listen, Sauce, even in a down year, which was year 3, which wasn't really that much down. It's just that the first 2 years the bar was set so high that it seemed down. He was still a really good, a really good cornerback. And even this year, he's still really good. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And if you can get away with that, and I don't, and some people will say that kind of keeps him from being in the elite conversation, is that he doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't get interceptions. I don't know, man. I think you pay him to, eliminate receivers and situations on the field for 60 minutes. And, game after game, he does that. I'm going to miss Sauce Gardner's play style. I actually really enjoyed his personality. I thought it was a fit here in New York. But again, considering the situation and what you were offered and what you received, like, I understand why they did it.
Did they get enough value for him?
Oh, I think they got more than enough value for him. Like I said, Micah Parsons is arguably the best defender, and he went for 2 later first round picks. Nothing's going to be known until the season's over, but arguably 2 later first round pick and a 30-year-old Kenny Clark, where we got a 22-year-old AD Mitchell wide receiver as our quote unquote throw in to the matter. So I think the value is more than fair.
How much of this is a gamble for next year? Like, the Colts will be good this year. That's not, they'll, at worst, they'll probably finish with a top 3 or 4 seed in the AFC East. They'll probably win their division. How much of this for the Jets is like, all right, Daniel Jones will revert back to being a pumpkin, that he is not a franchise guy, that next year this team might fall off a cliff because the quarterback, is not that good. And all of a sudden we get maybe a top 15, top 18 pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't know if they're thinking of it like that. I think what they're looking at is now they have, in essence, they have 5 premium picks, first or second round picks over the next 2 years to really, actually, do they have more than 5? They have 2 firsts, 3 firsts next year, 2 firsts this year, 3 firsts. Yeah, they have 7 picks that can be deemed premium over a 2-year span to figure out or utilize to secure the quarterback position, whether it's by manipulating around to draft their guy, which is what I would do, which is what I suspect them to do, or in the case where they can't do that, they can utilize it to acquire said veteran that might be on the outs with his team.
Final question on this: how much credit do you give that Mugray basically kept this hush hush? Like, he was going to a funeral for the late Nick Mangold. Yeah. He basically swore the Colts GM Chris Ballard to secrecy. Like, how much credit do you give that he was able to do this in an era where we need to know everything, like everything, every time, anywhere, every place? That is how this current, not even the NFL, just sports media is. And he was able to really get everybody to go, nope, we're not talking about till after the deal is done.
Yeah, Darren Muji has done something that Jets fans aren't too familiar with over the past, say 5-6 years. And he's running a tight ship up there, man. There's no leaks. There's no rats in the building. There's no one that has the connection to Diana Rossini like supposedly Robert Saleh had, or to any of the WFAN like some of Robert Saleh's staff supposedly had. There's nothing like this. The only inkling of information that you hear about the Jets is not coming from the Jets. For instance, like Quinnen Williams, who I'm sure we'll talk about as well. Him going to Dallas, you heard that rumored a couple weeks ago when they were making the Micah Parsons trade. You heard that they were very interested in Quinnen Williams, but that wasn't reported by the Jets beat or the Jets side because no one had that information. That came from the Dallas side. So Darren Muji is doing a good job keeping everything hush hush and in house, which is very refreshing. It's very different than the past regime.
So let's go to the Quinnen Williams deal. This if we thought Sauce Gardner was a blockbuster, this was. If I had told you that, hey, if you'd get two high draft picks, including next year's first round from the Cowboys, and you get Mozzie Smith for Quinnen Williams, would you have said, yeah, but that's feasible, or would you have said, no, you're pulling my chain? Nobody's going to pay that much. Were you shocked that the Cowboys made this move?
I'm not shocked that the Cowboys made a big move. I'm shocked that it ended up being this, more so because, again, I knew that Quinnen Williams wasn't going to be long for the Jets. Like, that man has served his time. He's 7 years with this franchise, hasn't won a dang thing. You knew it was getting frustrating for him. He kind of started to act in un-Quinnen Williams-like circumstances, like when they moved on from Aaron Rodgers. He went into the to the media and social media, voicing his displeasure about that decision, yada yada yada. And he's been, he's kind of been like a trooper. He's been a soldier for 7 years, and knew that his time was coming up. Now, the thing with Quinnen Williams, I didn't think they would trade him in the season because the defensive line is just paper thin to begin with, even with Quinnen Williams. I thought he would be a guy that was moved in the offseason before the draft, so on and so forth. But so that's why it was surprising. I think the return, again, I was pleasantly surprised that we got as much. We got a second this year to replace the third that we're already missing from a previous deal from the last regime. Joe Douglas trading for Hassan Reddick. And then you get the better of the two first rounders in 2027, which is a masterpiece work by GM Darren Muji. The thing people don't realize with Quinnen Williams, a couple things. It came out recently, and again, this is from his people, not from the Jets people, that he had requested a trade. And he was asked to just, keep it quiet, and they would do everything to accommodate him before the trade deadline, so on and so forth. And he did. He lived up to his bargain. They helped on working him. Getting him to a place where he wanted to be. There was 3 offers on the table. 2 of them were the exact same offer, a second next year and a first in 2027. And he wanted to, he chose to go to Dallas, where he was reunited with his former D-line coach, Aaron Whitecotton, in a system that he already knew and he was already comfortable with. And he won, and he got all-pro recognition on a couple years ago. So he wanted to go to Dallas. The Jets made that happen. Listen, the reality is that, his contract has only limited guaranteed money next year and then no more guarantees the last 2 years. So he's going to want to renegotiate that contract. And he wasn't going to be part of the, the timeline didn't match up with the Jets retooling a rebuild here. So they probably weren't going to pay him, top of the line, D-line money when it was all said and done. So you get rid of him now and get the maximum value back for him, which I think the Jets did. He's going to be sorely missed. Even today you saw some of the, the remnants of not having him there where Cleveland ran for 148 yards. So he's going to be sorely missed on the field. I think he's going to be sorely missed by, the fans who were with him for day one. But again, I applaud the foresight and the foresight and the vision by our front office, and now you got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds in 2026 and 2027, which is set up to be on paper arguably the best overall draft class in probably about 15 years. So you're gonna have 3 bites of the apple in the first round for that draft class. So that's a wonderful thing.
Who are the other teams that were offering this? Just curious. I mean, do we know that, or is
Yeah,
it just
Jacksonville. It came down to Dallas and Jacksonville offered him the same offer, a 2 and a 27 1, and he chose to go to Dallas. They said, we'll send you whichever one. You would said, this is the offer. It's the same offer by both teams. Whichever team you want to go to is where we'll trade you. And he wanted to go back to Dallas where he was with White Cotton. So there he is. Now, Buffalo was the third team that was very in on Quinnen Williams. I don't know what their offer was. It clearly didn't meet what Jacksonville or Dallas did, or maybe it did, and the Jets thought, that they needed to pay a little bit of tax since they were in the division. But Buffalo and Jacksonville and Dallas were the 3 big names in on the Quinnen Williams deal.
I got to ask, how much are the Jets happy about sending him to Dallas? Because they know how much, as much as you love Jerry Jones for being, colorful and always keeping the NFL talking, there's a lot of teams who think, okay, this is going to be a train wreck. By the way, you got, Perkins coming up next year for, he's going to be a free agent. Oh, yeah, that's going to go well with Jerry. It's the Cowboys have been sort of bereft of talent in certain key areas. Coach seems at times doesn't know what he's doing. Like, how much of a Jets banking on, okay, yeah, we'll send you to Dallas because we know that it's going to be it's going to be a bleep show next year. We might get a top 10 pick literally from Dallas because they will implode like they always do.
Yeah, I don't know if that. I'm just being honest. I don't know how much of that really came into it. From to my knowledge, from what I understand and from what I was told, they literally asked him, "Hey, this is the offer. This is the best offer. I got the same offer from 2 teams. Where do you want to go?" And he chose Dallas. So if he had said Jacksonville, they would have shipped him to Jacksonville.
I'm not saying that, but deep down, if you are, if you're a Jets, how much are you looking at this going? Oh, yes, this will actually work out for us because George Pickens is going to just. If you thought basically that Parsons was going to be, contentious with his contract, Perkins, that's going to be get your popcorn ready. There will be fireworks. Like, I'm guessing the Cowboys look at this going, the Jets are looking at the Cowboys going, this could actually be even better than the Jets pick. The AFC South is a train wreck.
Yeah,
Cowboys might finish last next year, because they will literally become the soap opera that we always know them to be.
Yeah, they could. But I think the NFC is a lot more wide open than the AFC. I think the AFC is a lot top heavier. So, you never can rule Dallas out. Even a mediocre team can still challenge for the division. So, maybe that had something to do with play. I'm sure that right now they're rooting for Dallas losses this year and next year, just like the Jets fans are rooting for Indianapolis to lose every game from this point on. But we'll see.
In your opinion, was this a good trade considering that teams sort of knew he kind of wanted out? You would have heard whispers like, hey, they might be moving him from not the Jets, from other people. Like, hey, he might be on the move. Because you are hearing like the Chiefs, want to go after him. You heard like from Bills fans, hey, he could be available.
Yeah.
Considering what they got, a first, a second, and Mozzie Smith, is this a good haul for a guy who wanted out and teams probably read the tea leaves and knew that?
On paper, it's probably the best that you were going to do. And, you'll find out in about 4 years if it was worth it, right? Because if you use that second and first to pluck somebody who, helps you start to win games or helps you get your franchise quarterback, then it's a win.
That leads us to our next topic then.
Yes, sir.
Fernando Mendoza right now is the apple of everybody's eye right now in the early stage of the 2026 NFL draft. He still isn't clear, so we're I know we're putting the apple, the horse before the the cart before the horse, as they say. But you watch college football. You saw this weekend's game. If you're the Jets, like, and I know they were scouting this kid.
Uh-huh.
How much were you looking at this going? He might be the guy. He might be, who we take if we get either the first or second pick overall.
Yeah. So I don't know if you'll need to be number 1 or number 2 overall to get Fernando Mendoza. And you were right. The Jets were there. The entire front office was on hand to watch the game. That was the third game documented that the entire front office went from GM Darren Muji down were all in attendance for Fernando Mendoza game. So, you can read between the tea leaves there. There's definite interest in the quarterback position. They're doing their homework. They're doing their due diligence. I personally think it was a great game to really see what Mendoza was about. Statistically, it wasn't his best game. I think the second half he struggled at times. But you take what he did in the first half, in which was, continue to show what he's put on film now for 20 plus starts over the past few years. And that's just like an ability to make any throw on the field with pinpoint accuracy, and anticipation. So he showed that, that's been a thing about his game that's always been a plus, and he proved that to be true. He proved a negative that's been banted around, that he doesn't move very well. He proved that he's more mobile than a lot of people want to give him credit for. Now he's not Lamar Jackson in any way, shape, or form, and I don't know if you'll, have a guy who's going to, run for 6, 7, 800 yards like some of these true dual threat quarterbacks. But he's not a net negative with, being off platform or outside, using his legs to effectuate the offense. They designed some runs for him in the last game, which he executed. He ran for a touchdown, scrambled for an 18-yard touchdown. So he proved some of the naysayers wrong. And then he came back from a really, ho-hum to below average second half, and probably put on the drive of the century, playing, on the road, a very, very loud, boisterous, difficult place to play in Happy Valley against a good Penn State team who was constantly blitzing him. And, he led the team down the field with less than a minute left and no timeout, or one timeout, and, to win the game. So, he showed that he's got the gumption and, the wherewithal to step up in a big spot and come up big. And that's the second time he's done that now against another top 10 defense. He did the same thing. People questioned if he could do it against Oregon, playing in Oregon. He blew Oregon out. Iowa, who's got one of the better defenses in the league, shut him down for 3 quarters, and then he came out, and really put the team on his back. So, he's doing this without 2 of his starting offensive linemen and 2 of his starting wide receivers as well. So, if you're a fan of Fernando Mendoza, I think it was a good thing that the Jets front office was there yesterday to see him.
As a draft analyst, like, how tough is it for you trying to figure out how good some of these kids are? Like, you see Fernando Mendoza, and there's going to be critics go, well, it's the Big Ten. It's been a down year. Outside of Oregon and maybe Iowa, who the hell's he played? You hear Tyler Simpson being bandied about, and people go, well, he has a super team around him. I mean, he has maybe a first-round draft pick coming out this year in, Giovanni Bernard. And, oh, by the way, he has maybe the second best player in all college football in Williams coming out next year, probably a top 3 or 4 pick. So if you're breaking down Simpson and Mendoza, who do you like more? How do you see these two shape up? Like, are both guys good enough for the Jets to draft in the first round, or is there a guy that you look at and go, I'd rather him than him?
Oh man. So I know this is kind of a cop out. And I'll explain a little bit more, but I'm absolutely fine, I think, with either of these guys, if they were the selection. Now, I have one caveat. I want them, I'm fine with either of them, depending on where the Jets pick. In being the second quarterback off the board, right? If they're picking right now, they pick tentatively their fifth overall, says Tankathon. So if the first quarterback overall went to whoever's at in the 3 spot, and the Jets landed the second one at the 5 spot, I'm fine with it. I don't know if I'm in a position or I'm comfortable enough yet, and there's still some time, that I want to trade up for any of these guys. I know it sounds crazy, but I just think that, if you trade up and start shelling off a lot of this capital that you earned, it's kind of a double entendre, a double negative, if you will. It kind of takes away the purpose of having all these picks in this class and the next class, because you should be able to land one of your quarterbacks here. I'm not sure if these guys are lockstep, trade up, trade the house to go get them kind of franchise quarterbacks. I like them both. I think they're both very good. I have Mendoza graded higher than Simpson right now, but in fairness, I haven't finished all Simpson's full eval. I still have about 2 or 3 more games of his from this season to review and add into the scouting report, but I think they're both very good players. I don't know if either of them are elite. I think they're both very good players. So I'd be happy with either of them. And I will say this, Chris, I don't think taking either of them, with one of your first round picks precludes you from taking another bite of the apple at quarterback next year. You can take your guy, and if you realize after a year that, he's not it, go get another guy. You got 3 picks next year. Use one on a quarterback then.
We're gonna throw the wild card out. Everybody talks about Lenore Sellers. He needs a lot of work, but we've seen now if the road to the AFC Championship goes through either Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, probably Drake May, you need that sort of freak, explosive athlete / big play quarterback. That's Sellers in terms of the ceiling. Like, you look at him and he is Josh Allen 2.0. He is this 6'3", 245-pound, howitzer of an arm, can run for, an 80-yard touchdown. He needs a lot of work. So if he came out, let's say if he was the number 5 pick, is that a smart play? And are the Jets capable to go, we will sit you for a year so you can learn and not have to just go in there and, oh, yes, you're going to say the franchise, this 21-year-old kid who from South Carolina, have fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, a couple things to that. One, I don't know if he's going to come out. If I had, a couple nickels in my pocket that I wanted to burn, I might burn them on the side that says he returns to school, maybe enters the transfer portal and goes somewhere else. But to just walk with you on that situation, I don't know if he's top 5 pick for me. You have another first round pick later, the Indianapolis pick. And if you said, listen, Mendoza and Simpson are off the board, or they're not really our guys. There's a linebacker that we really like, or there's an edge rusher that we really like. We want to use our first high pick on that guy and then come back and plug it with Lenore Sellers. Something like that would be fine, but you better, to me, as a fan, I'd want to feel comfortable, but that the bridge plan was in place, because you can't, there's no NFL team that can hand over the reins right off the bat to Lenore Sellers. He hasn't, he's still progressing. He's still learning how to play the position quarterback. Strong, like you said, strong arm, super athletic, has wonderful maneuverability and mobility in the pocket, can avoid pressure as good as anyone in the college game. That's a strong arm, but still learning how to play the position. Right now, he's a half field reader. He'll get through progression 1, progression 2, and run. That's just not going to cut it. I mean, we see that's the same problem that Justin Fields has had since he's come in the league. That's been his MO. and we see how that's working out. So you better have a plan on who's going to develop Lenora Sellers and what the bridge plan is, if he's going to be the selection, because you can't go into a season with Justin Fields and Lenora Sellers. You just can't.
In your opinion, is there any quarterback right now that you look and go, if he came out, you can just plug and play and he's ready? Or are all of these kids, whether it's Mendoza, whether it's Sellers, whether it's Tyler Simpson, Dante Moore, Darian Mensah, Josh Hoover, hell, I'll even throw Arch Manning. Even though the family's already said he's not coming out this year. People like,
Yeah.
are any of these kids ready, or are they all like they'll need to sit? They need to learn like this isn't college football. You can't do what you do there because in the NFL you'll get killed.
Yeah, I listen. I think my opinion is that all quarterbacks should sit. I think it's very rare that you just turn the keys over and it's usually successful, especially for a team that's void of a lot of talent, especially at the skill position like the Jets. You're asking for trouble or a slow start here. So I would probably say anybody whoever comes out, whether he's the first pick overall or whether he's your 6th-round pick, and he's pushing for the spot, give him some time, man. And maybe it's like a Jackson Dart thing where it's not a whole season. Maybe it's the first 5-6 games. Let him get used to the NFL speed and so on and so forth before you throw him to the Wolves.
Let's go to the now. The now is the New York Jets had their second win. They defeated Cleveland by a score 27-20, where it was ugly, it was pretty, it was wild, it was bizarre, but at the end of the day, they got their second win. Let's start with the positives. For a team that basically traded its 2 top defensive players, you could argue that their number 1 wide receiver was out for most of the game, and their quarterback, is having hiccups here and there. How happy are you that they got the win and that they haven't just rolled over and quit?
Listen, I'm happy. You know what I'm happiest about? I can't remember the last time we came out of a bye week with a win. I can't remember the last time we came out of a bye week and didn't come out flat as could be. And the Jets didn't come out flat. The offense wasn't good today. And part of that is that the Cleveland defense is very, very good. And the offense didn't do it today, but they played complementary football, in all 3 phases. The special teams and the defense stepped up in times and moments to help support the offense. It was more of a team win today. I don't know if you can hang your hat and hope that you're going to get 2 special teams touchdowns each week to win games. I think they got some stuff they got to figure out. But a W is a W, and they came up big when they needed to in the right spots.
In your mind, who stepped up that you basically went, okay, there's a future? I didn't see this guy, let's say in the first 4 or 5 games, but in the last couple of games, he's really come on. He is somebody that this team should keep because he's part of our future.
Yeah, I think the easy answer to that is Will McDonald. Will McDonald's a talented kid. His skill set is so unique, and the Jets haven't been in a position over the past couple seasons to really utilize his skill set. They don't play with many leads, but he was unleashed today with a lead and just given free reign to just go get the quarterback. And the end of the day, tying the Jets record with 4 sacks on the day. 6 tackles, 4 sacks. I think he was credited for 8 or 9 quarterback pressures. I mean, just an absolutely dominant day. And it's not that I didn't think Will McDonald had it in him. It's just that it hadn't, like he had a sack in week 1, he had 1 sack, I think in like week 5, and it's been kind of quiet since then. So, him busting out there is really, really the easy, the easy answer to the question of who really stood out and who really stepped up and stood out.
Who else caught your eye? Like, what are the players will say on defense first? You went, okay, they're worth keeping.
Yeah. I know you heard his name a lot today in more of a negative connotation because he was dinged for a couple penalties. But Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the slot cornerback that they acquired from Tennessee a couple weeks ago, he's been such a spitfire. He's been such a positive for our defense. He's really brought a different aspect to the defensive back room that we haven't had in a while, and that is like just like that rare like um that raw physicality, really helping fit in the runs and supporting supporting run defense from the DB position is something that the Jets haven't had a lot of the past couple of years, and he's really brought that. And like I said, when Azarie Thomas went down with an injury today early on, Jarvis stepped up and just moved outside, and he was making plays left and right on the outside. Yeah, did he have his fair share of negative moments? Yeah, he was called for a couple penalties. That's gonna happen, but he to me epitomizes what I want my defensive guys to be. Like tough, no nonsense. Kind of will run right through you, not to you, and then play just with their hair on fire for 60 minutes. That's what Jarvis Brownlee looked like to me today, and that's what he's looked like since he's stepped in for Michael Carter II as the starting slot cornerback.
Let's talk offensive line. We saw even in their loss to the Patriots, Myles Garrett go ballistic and get 5 sacks against Drake May. How did you grade the tackles? How did Olu and Membu do against Myles Garrett? Did they look lost? Did they handle their own? I mean,
no, I
against the
thought
guy who's just dominant, how did they do?
Yeah, I mean, again, watching it broadcast and not really watching it back all the way. I remember Myles Garrett beating Olu on the right-hand side once for a sack, and he did get him on a speed move. He was just too fast and didn't get him there. Every other time I saw Olu holding his own. It's the only time Myles Garrett got in to sack the quarterback was once. So comparatively to last week when he had 5 sacks, I'd say that's a pretty good game. But more will be determined when I get a chance to get into the coach's film and really, really break down what the offense, what they did and what they didn't. But yeah, I didn't see Membu line up against Garrett at all. Garrett usually lines up solely on the right side of the defensive line, so that would be against the left tackle. So most of his action was against Olu.
How have they played so far this year? I mean, considering what they are, it's a first year and a second year tackle, and this is a league where every defensive end has at least 2 or 3 pass rush moves, and they can make tackles look like idiots.
Yep.
Should the Jets, especially Aaron Glenn, should he be happy with how they're doing, or is there still cause of concern?
No, I think the Jets know that they got 2 really good foundational pieces at left and right tackle. Membu's been everything as advertised. Dominant, dominant right tackle, dominant in the run game, has held his own very well versus the past. Tough, physical, just turned 21 years old, a couple weeks ago. So there's still a lot of room and development that can happen in his game, a lot of strength that can come about. Then not that he's, weak in any sense. I mean, he's as strong as an ox, but still not fully developed physically and definitely, with his skill set. So the sky's the limit for a guy like Armand Membu. It wouldn't surprise me if he's held in the same regard as Penei Sewell over the next few years, as just like your prototypical right tackle. And Olu's had a little bit of an up and down year in the sense of his numbers. It seems that a lot of pressures and let up a few too many sacks. They all get dinged to the linemen. However, the Jets offensive line has given Justin Fields more time to throw by over a second than the rest of the league. So it's not that the offensive linemen aren't doing their job. They're doing their job. Just sometimes when the quarterback holds on to the ball too long or is very mobile and moves around the pocket and navigates very well, the quarterback is going to walk himself into some sacks or some pressures or some quarterback hits. And I think that has happened a lot this year, and the offensive line, especially on the left side, between Simpson and Simpson and Olu, they've gotten, they've worn the lion's share of the brunt for that stuff that mainly or usually isn't all their fault.
Good thing they didn't trade Brees Hall because he was the offense today. Is this a step for the Jets to go? We might need to re-sign this guy as soon as possible. Just get him on a 4-year deal, have him as a bell cow. I know he said he said he wanted out, but they didn't want to move him for a 4th-round pick. They insisted on a 3rd or higher. Could you sign it? If they gave him a James Cook deal right now, do you think he signs it with Jets, or does he still want out? But he's like, okay, I want to play for a contender.
I think if you give him that James Cook deal, I think he signs. But you know what? The Jets don't have to do that. The Jets have, they have the right to franchise him or put him on the transition tag if they want to try to work out a long-term deal. So my guess is, since they didn't trade him, my guess is that that's the plan. Either in the offseason, they're going to look to extend him, or they're going to plan on using the franchise or transition tag. Now, the Jets are going to be just south of $101 million in cap space or cap availability. So paying $12 million on the transition tag or $14 million on the franchise tag, that's gonna, or 11.8 on transition and 14 on the franchise. It's gonna be a drop in the bucket. The Jets can afford to do it. So I think I fully expect them to utilize that next year.
Is he worth it? I mean, from what you've seen so far this year, there's been games he's been just electric. Is he worth the James Cook investment? And all right, here's your 4-year deal. Here's the guaranteed money. We'll make you the focal point of the offense until the quarterback can catch up to speed.
Yeah, he is the focal point of the offense right now.
I'm saying going forward, like even if whoever they draft, like you're still the focal point.
Yeah, well, listen. What is there's nothing better to a young rookie quarterback than a good offensive line, which the Jets have. Right now they have the makings of it. They have 3 really, really young, good pieces, and 2 that they have to make decisions on this offseason, and a really good crew of weapons. Now the Jets aren't flush with weapons, right? They have Garrett Wilson. You hope that you can get something from AD Mitchell. You hope that Mason Taylor can come around and become play a little bit more dynamic. You don't know what you have in Arian Smith at wide receiver. So you better get a guy who can tote the rock and who can help you out in the pass game as well, like Brees Hall. They're either gonna decide to keep him, whether it's short term or long term, or they're gonna do everything in their power to try and draft a guy just like him again. He's only 24 years old, gonna be 25. I'd lock him up, man. I'd give him 2-3 years without question. 3 years, 45 million, with 25 of it guaranteed, something like that, 24 of it guaranteed.
I'm trying to be polite about Justin Fields because after his last comment where he talked about breaking down in tears about the owner's comments, and he's been the whipping boy, and yet he's not. He is one of those rare guys you can look and go, he is a good guy. It's brutal watching him. And look, as I said, he is, as a person, you can't ask for a finer guy if you're on a football team. He has leadership qualities. He is humble. He is everything. But how much longer can they put him out there for? And is there any way to fix him, or is this just what he is? He is an athlete playing quarterback.
Yeah, I think at this point, honestly, Chris, he is what he is. And you hope that you have enough around him where he can just manage the game and not turn the ball over and affect it with his legs every so often, or at least set forth the idea that he might affect the game with his legs, keep the defense kind of on the the balls of their feet, or I shouldn't say that, off the balls of their feet, on their heels, a little bit. So Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if he's got it. It's a shame. Um, because you're right. He seems like a really straightforward, good guy. Um, and just not very good at what he does professionally.
Hindsight 2020, was there anything they could have done better at quarterback? I know that there's probably some Jet fans going, we could have had Sam Darnold. No, that wasn't an option. He wasn't coming. It was Seattle or bust.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but anything like when you look at what went out there, I mean, would they have been better getting maybe a Gardner Minshew? I don't know, maybe trying to get Geno Smith if that was possible, or was this like the best that they could have done considering how few good quarterbacks are usually available and how dearth the free agent market was.
Um, in hindsight, I think that there was probably some stuff that they could have done. Um, but again, I don't even think this version of Fields is the same version of Fields that played in Pittsburgh or Chicago. He seems even more kind of muted because he's not running a lot. The reality is, I think since his concussion week 2, I don't think he's been 100% healthy because they have not designed many runs. He's not scrambling nearly as much as he used to. Um, so yeah, so if you told me you can have Justin Fields, but only about 50% efficiency of Justin Fields, I'd say, wow, nah, keep him. Go get me something else. But yeah, listen, I knew they had to move on from Aaron Rodgers, and that was the best option at the time. So although I wasn't a big fan of the player, anything was going to be better than Aaron Rodgers again. And it's not a knock on him as a player for the Jets. It's more so a knock on everything that came with the Aaron Rodgers experience.
What would you have done? I'm putting you in the GM seat, and instead of Moogray, it's going to be you, and you're running the Jets. Like, who would you have wanted a quarterback that was available and possible? Because again, it's you knew Daniel Jones had his heart set on Indianapolis because he looked at that talent, and went, I can start right away.
Yep.
You knew that Sam Darnold, it was Seattle or bust.
Uh-huh.
Was there anything else? I mean, would you have traded draft capital for Geno Smith? Would you have taken a run at Gardner Minshew? Like,
I
was
would
there
have
somebody?
I would have I would have kicked the tires on two guys who are currently backups, in one being Tanner McKee from Philadelphia and the other being Davis Mills from Houston. And I would have drafted a quarterback in this past class, not in the first or second round. I didn't think you needed to. But I would have taken Shedeur Sanders in round 4, say, um, and just let it fly like that, and have Shedeur Sanders and a very high end number 2 quarter, or like backup quarterback in either Davis Mills or Tanner McKee. You know, start for compete for the job in camp. That's what I would have done.
Who's in a better position right now? The New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns going forward as a franchise?
I think the Jets, and I think that's because they are much more fiscally. They're in a much better place, much more positive place in terms of their salary cap and financials. I think they have a deeper roster. They might not. Cleveland might have a better player or two. Myles Garrett might be the best player on both teams combined, but I think that the Jets are the arrow's pointing up in terms of you know what they have in terms of attempting to retool and rebuild this roster. Just we'll find out if they have the right men leading the ship in terms of the players and the coaches.
So speaking of righting the ship, is Aaron Glenn the right guy to right the ship, or is it safe to say we don't know because this team is just so lacking in quarterbacks, skill players on offense, even defensive tackle now, and he walked into, you could argue, a dumpster fire in this early during this off season.
Yeah. I want to like Aaron Glenn a lot more. I loved him as a player. Um, I'm not sure if he's the guy. Um, and I have no idea, like the roster is void of a lot of talent. But the one thing that I can tell you is, the whole Bill Parcells disciple tough guy thing is wearing very thin on me. You know what I mean? He makes things more difficult than they have to be with the way he speaks and the way he talks to the media. And I think it just rubs people the wrong way. Like he hasn't earned, he hasn't really done anything as a head coach yet in this league. He's got a couple wins now. But the attitude, the personality is very pompous, like a guy who has, back to back to back Super Bowl championships. And that rubs me the wrong way. As a coach, especially a coach on a team that's going to hopefully have a young, rookie quarterback in place, I'd rather have an offensive minded guy anyway. So I don't know if he's the guy. I know that this group of men play very are very dedicated to this coaching staff. They like Aaron Glenn. They like the Jets.
So what when you're saying that, like, what do you want in a head coach? Because I get you're describing that with Glenn. What can you say this across the street or basically across the state? That's Mike Vrabel. Vrabel is basically a lot like Aaron Glenn. He has no problem sometimes being, a bit of a hard ass with the media. He's maybe I'd say a little more, sly about it, but he has no problem busting people's balls and letting you know, hey, look, you're kind of an idiot. The question's kind of stupid if I need to. That you could argue that he's even a lot like Tomlin in a sense. Like,
yeah, whose demeanor I like in terms of how they handle the press and the media and just their public persona. I think Sean McVay does it great. I think the guy in Carolina does it great. I think those guys have just like a different kind of personality where you can be a hard ass to your players, but when you don't have to be a hard ass to Brian Costello and Rich Cimini. Like, what are you doing about that? Where's that getting you? I don't know. I just don't know. Like I said, that's a personal thing with him that drives me batty. I don't know if the team, like I said, the team really, really likes him. The team plays hard for him. The big question is going to see, what happens when you have a rookie quarterback in here, or if you have a quarterback in here. Can you and your staff develop him to be that, franchise altering player? Because that's what we need. We need franchise altering players at this point. We're heading on 15 years without a playoff exposure. That has to change, and that's not going to change until we get a quarterback. And I don't know if Aaron Glenn is the guy that I want leading my quarterback. I just don't know if he's there yet.
Who is though? I mean, because and this isn't just I'm not snarking on you.
No. I got you. I can answer that. I think a veteran offensive minded coach who has experience working with young quarterbacks. And I'll just throw some names out just for hypotheticals. Like, if you told me that instead of hiring Aaron Glenn, you hired Mike McCarthy, I'd be fine with it. If you told me you hired Kevin Stefanski, because he was let go in Baltimore, or in Cleveland, I'd be down with it. If you told me you gave me a guy like, oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some others.
No, I get it, but I mean, like, let's say Aaron Glenn's not the guy. And you want to get a new head coach. For every Andy Reid, there is a Norv Turner. For every Sean McVay, you get a lot of Josh McDaniels. So
yeah,
and we're looking at right now, like, okay, Joe Brady. Well, great. Is Joe? Are you taking Josh Allen with you? No. Okay. Well, I don't know how well that will do. Or
yeah.
if you're taking Clint Kubiak, Clint, are you taking Seattle's offensive line, Kenneth Walker and Sam Darnold with you? Nope. All right, well, I mean,
Yeah, fair point. It's a fair, it's a fair question. You never know what you're gonna have. But if I'm not gonna, if I'm gonna be in that, kind of abyss and not know or take a chance on a rookie quarterback, I think I still would rather have one with an offensive background. I think it just bodes well. I love Tanner Angstrom. I think Tanner Angstrom's doing a great job with what he's given, which is not much. First time calling plays. But with a defensive head coach, think about it. He's screwed one way or another, right? He's either going to be, or the Jets are screwed, I should say, because a guy like Tanner Angstrom is either going to be so good as as kind of the boss on the offense that his name's going to be bantered about in the next cycle. Now I'm not saying a guarantee it happen next year, but usually good coordinators have their name start being part of the next head coaching cycle. And if he's bad, he's going to be the first one that has his head chopped off by the defensive head coach. That happens time and time over and over, right? We watch all these head coaches, throw guys on the proverbial sword. I mean, we watch it with Robert Saleh, do it with Michael Floor, after 1 year. Now, I think he was mandated to do that from Woody, which, that's for a different phone call, different conversation. I have my opinions on that, but you see that it happens, right? Something goes bad, blame the coordinator. Something goes good, hire the coordinator. And then you have a defensive-minded head coach in search of another coordinator who hopefully he can work with and can make the most out of it. So if I'm going to hire a rookie head coach, I'd rather have him be on the offensive side of the ball, mainly because I think you can keep things kind of fluid, right? The guy doesn't have to learn a new offense or new rhetoric or anything like that.
Final two questions on this before we let you go because we're pressed for time. How much does it help Aaron Glenn that, like Vrabel, like D'Amico Ryans, like Dan Campbell, he can command respect? I mean, I'm guessing it's hard for guys like Mike McDaniel, Shane Steichen, even you could argue McDonald over in Seattle, because there's going to be players who look and go, "You never played, weren't even an All-American in college. Why the hell should I listen to a guy who, you were grabbing coffee for the guys 5 or 6 years ago?" Like the next player can at least go, "I know what you're going through. You have to trust me. I've been in your shoes," and they can go, get it. Especially for a younger generation of player who wants to know why.
Yeah.
Why should I do this? Why will this play work? It's not the usual yes, sir, no, sir. It's now why. So is Glenn good for the Jets, at least in that he can look at all these players and go, "I've been in your shoes. I've been in this place. I've been a player. I know exactly what you're going through."
Yeah, I think that is a good thing for the Jets, especially since Glenn, kind of was one of them. I don't know this as fact, but the players look up to guys who had played the game. They look at them a little differently than a coach, who hasn't. So especially Aaron Glenn being one of them, being a Jet himself, I think that holds a little bit more depth and weight. I would assume it does, at least.
Finally, would you trade a first round pick for a coach? Let's say Kevin O'Connell goes, "I can't deal this many more, Minnesota. I want out." If you're a Jets and Minnesota goes, "We'll give you a first round pick for Kevin O'Connell," would you do that? I mean, outside of, let's say, McVay and Andy Reid, is there any coaches around here that you go, "Yeah, I'll trade a first round pick for you"?
I would trade 2 first round picks for Kevin O'Connell. I think Kevin O'Connell is the best coach in the league that's not named Andy Reid.
Wow, even better than Sean McVay.
That's fair. Like McVay's, I guess.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Not.
You're that high on him for 2.
Correct. I would give up 2 first round picks for Kevin O'Connell. Absolutely. For a young, aggressive offensive mind who's come in and made his mark and put his team in the playoffs and has done it with a bevy of different men at the helm. Like quarterbacks come to Shanahan and quarterbacks come to McVay to recreate themselves. that has something to say about the coaching that they do. So to your question, yes, I would give up 2. I would give up one of my 26 and one of my 27s to go get Kevin O'Connell. Absolutely, no questions asked.
Well, hopefully that might never happen, or hopefully will happen. We'll find out one of these days. But for now, we gotta let you go. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I give you one of the guys you can check out all over the place if you want to find out Jets coverage. I give you from the Talking Jets show, Jets X Factor, and also the Scout Academy. I give you it's Big Dom C. So Dom, before we let you go, where else can fans check you out at? Where is the YouTube channel, Twitter? Where can fans hit you up at?
So I'm very active on Twitter at DC_NY Jets. You can always catch me there. I'm pretty active, day in, day out. On Monday nights from 8 p.m., myself and Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7 host a show from 8 to 9. Usually talking, usually post gaming, the Jets, the day after. Usually commiserating. Tomorrow will be a little fun because we have Victory Monday. So that's from 8 to 9 on the Talking Jets Network on YouTube. And for all those draft nicks and draft junkies like myself, you can find all of my draft stuff. All of my detailed scouting reports will be available through Jets X Factor in written form. And if you can't get enough of that, you can always check me out at Project Prospect with Dom C on YouTube, spelled in one word, Project Prospect with Dom C, for all of your draft needs from now until the end of April.
Dom C, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always on a pleasure to have you on the show. We come back. We got a lot more going on here, only on it's Last Call. Last Call of the Alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com.